Welcome to Planting Pinellas, the podcast that digs deep into the heart of gardening in Pinellas County. Presented by Master Gardener volunteers of the University of Florida Institute of Food and Agricultural Sciences. I'm Charlotte Vaughn.
I'm Alan Shapiro. Whether you're a local looking to connect with your community or a visitor curious about your area's culture, conservation, and all things green, this is the place for you.
Join us as we explore the people, places, projects, and of course plants that make Pinellas a thriving hub of sustainability, innovation, and natural beauty. From gardening tips to environmental initiatives, we've got the roots of Pinellas covered. So grab your gardening gloves and let's get started.
Hi everyone, welcome back to Planting Pinellas. So glad to have you here. This month is Principle 9, our last principle of Florida-friendly landscaping. And Principle 9 is protecting the waterfront. And I think it's pretty obvious what that means, but let me give you some specifics. Implementing Florida-friendly landscaping design and maintenance methods helps protect water bodies from pollution. If you live on a lake, bay, river, or water body, keep fertilizers, pesticides, and other toxins away from water by preserving a 10-foot low-maintenance zone between landscape and the water. Do not mow, fertilize, or apply pesticides in the area. But I think the question is, I don't live near a lake or a waterfront or the ocean. So even if you do not live immediately on the waterfront, the pesticides and fertilizers you apply to your landscape affect the health of local water bodies through the drainage system called the watershed. So, Charlotte, we talked a lot about that last episode.
Yeah, and just the simple thought that Pinellas County residents, we don't have a watershed. We are a watershed. The county is a watershed, whether it's into McKay Creek or into the Gulf directly or into Lake Seminole, that all of these areas, North County, South County, Mid County, it is a watershed wherever you are. And there are freshwater bodies that are impacted by every resident, what they do on their property that trickles down to the water bodies and makes its way into those watersheds and into the waterfronts. Ultimately, our water as a whole is impacted with things like algae, and we're going to get into all of that, but It is an issue for all of us here.
And I think that's interesting when, again, even if you don't live near the watershed, anything that you apply, and we talked about this in the last episode, and people need to go back and listen to that, but you apply fertilizers, you apply pesticides, they will somehow, even if you're not near any water at all, they will still somehow get into our water and into our lakes and into our streams and into
and that's really
intercoastal.
The issues of runoff that we talked about in some of the other principles as well, that managing that stormwater runoff with the watershed concept, that all of those things are being picked up by that water that runs across the ground surface. And water likes to grab onto things. It has this sticky kind of characteristic that it will take debris, it will take pet waste, it will take nutrients and toxins and other types of chemicals, whether they're organic or inorganic, that it will pick up those things and carry it along. So talking about Principle 7, recycling your yard waste, that if you're allowing that compost to nourish your soil, that it's helping to improve the water retention on your property so that then it's not carrying as much stuff off of your land. It's able to filter through the ground there on site. And cleaning up after your pets and then managing pests are both aspects of this process where you're making sure that you don't leave waste in a place where it can flow into the water, because there's nutrients in that as well.
And that's Principle 6. You were talking about some of the pests in your yard, doing that responsibly using integrated pest management and trying to reduce the amount of pesticide. Again, as you just stated and said, whatever you put there can trickle down. I love that. I love that statement. Can trickle down through our very porous soil into our aquifers,
right,
and into our water.
And even the concept number 5, attracting wildlife, it may be more of an effect of Principle 9 versus causing an effect. So we'll get there as well. But if you're managing your waterfront properties in a more friendly way, then that's going to tend to be more friendly towards those native wildlife. And even just considering Principle 4 as well, that mulching is helping to nourish the soil. It's helping to slow down some of that runoff and all the things. It's like it flows down the list of the principles. I can't help it.
That's good. I like that.
I don't always do these cheesy jokes on purpose. Sometimes they just happen. But you already mentioned fertilizing appropriately, and we've talked about using other chemicals and pesticides, herbicides in a responsible way. The label is the law, all of that. How you water your own lawn, that
Principle 2.
You're not overwatering to the point where you're generating runoff. We can't get away from it. We can never get away from the right plant in the right place, because if you're putting the things in the spots that they need to be, both for the benefit of the plant and the benefit of the site, that it is going to do so much to, again, protect that waterfront. So we've made it to the end of the year. We've made it to the end of the principles, but it's just been kind of building and building to this all-encompassing thought of all these little things that we do along the way add up to keeping our water and our area clean and healthy.
And I think what you said is important. Little things. Again, we've talked about this in many of the episodes, that you go at what level you want, but even doing something just simple can help. And doing each of these principles a little bit, as you just said, encompasses this last principle in a big way, and especially in our community.
Right. Well, in the sense of maintaining waterfront property, if you don't live on the beach or on a lake or on another body of water in our area, the Tampa Bay, whatever, if that's not your land that connects to that water, then still being responsible to the extent that you can. But what if you do? Because there's a lot of people who have that direct impact as well as the indirect impact. So one of the big things that makes a difference is the types and placement of the plants, the vegetation on the shoreline, that whether it's a freshwater shore or a saltwater shore, that those choices make such a big difference.
But of course, the right plant, the right place. So there's a real difference if your waterfront is freshwater versus saltwater. And I think what's important here is we talked a little bit just about that about a 10-foot buffer zone.
And this is kind of the what not to do, that you see a lot of even just small ponds and other things where the grasses go directly up to within feet or inches of that water line. And there's a lot of headache that creates, because that soil itself is going to be soft from the water pooling in its vicinity to be able to get close enough to mow it, or to go out there by hand and use a handheld trimmer of some kind. That's a lot more effort to maintain turf grass up to the water line. So if you just don't do that, then you have a lot more cost and time savings in that maintenance, where you pick a native grass that can grow in the type of waterfront that you have, and you let it just grow, because it's not going to get unruly looking. It's going to be something that looks natural here because it is native to our area.
And then that benefits attracting wildlife.
Absolutely, because if you have some standing taller things more than a few inches, then it gives some space for habitat. And that can be the aquatic wildlife as well as the land wildlife, that things that are back and forth in between. They like to be near the water, but they want space to be safe out of the water.
Reduces the runoff that would go into the waterway. All of these things, again, are really, really beneficial.
And just to give you an idea of some of the types of plants, I have always kept the Florida Friendly Plant Guide app and the web app link as well in the show notes on every episode that we've done.
And we highly recommend it if you are looking to do any of these things that we're talking about.
And it's a free resource that is just right there at hand anytime that you need it. So I did a simple search where in the custom filter, and again, they're still saying that there's more updates coming to the app. So right now there's a filter and a custom filter. Don't use the filter. Use the custom filter, because if you want to choose more than one characteristic, or you want to be able to say that pink or purple flowers are okay. You need to use the custom filter to make more than one selection. So I went into that and I scrolled almost to the end. pH is the last thing on that filter. Soil moisture is the one just before that. And I put medium drained to wet, or wet. I hit filter, and it gives me a list of 43 plants that will grow in our zone 10. And it includes types of ferns, it includes some shrubs, some vines, bamboo, some grasses, things like canna lilies and periwinkle, the button bush. I finally got myself a button bush, and it's just so cute. There's wildflowers like coreopsis. There's different kind of grasses like the salt grass and the swamp, how do you say that? Swamp Cerealia? I don't know. Swamp Cerilla. There's different kinds of irises.
So the beautiful thing of that app and what you did and with the filters is that there's a lot of variety. And I think that's the other thing that maybe a lot of people and our listeners don't realize, that it's not just beach sunflower, for example.
Yeah.
You know,
You've got ferns and grasses up to palms and different kinds of trees. And if I wanted to take that search a little bit further, I went back into the custom filter and I scrolled back up near the top. There is an option for salt tolerance. If you live on the Gulf or on the bay where you have either brackish or salt water. And again, I selected medium to high, and high salt tolerance. So it will include anything within that range. And there's still 13 plants that can handle standing water for short or long periods of time, depending on the plant, and salt. And I could take the wet part off of there, where maybe it's medium drained or medium to wet, but not fully standing water. And there's other options that continue to open up the more that I play around with those filters.
It just shows that the app is just so versatile and so useful. And again, the other thing I think is important with that app is that once you make a choice and you've done your filtering, you can choose a particular plant, and it's going to give you even more information about that plant and some of, how it grows, the height, and some other characteristics.
Yeah, and I didn't even get into the part sun versus part shade and all of those things. So there's a lot of research that you can do all in one spot in that Florida Friendly Plant Guide that then helps you to make good decisions for how to plant that buffer zone. And then once you've got that buffer zone in place, then you don't have to mow it. I forgot to mention, if you are wanting to kind of be that extra step, that you can even select that with all of these other parameters, which ones of those are Florida native plants. And so all of these different things that you can customize that combination to suit your specific needs, because we do have a variety of situations that people in our county would find themselves in. That we have some North County folks that deal with a little bit more cold weather and a little bit more natural areas.
We do have some microclimates.
Absolutely.
In our county.
And even within neighborhoods, we have microclimates. And there's kind of a thought that a home and a property can have a microclimate within its own space, that I have a definite microclimate under my big oak tree that's very different from my fully exposed west side of my yard.
And it depends, right? It depends on your house, too, in terms of how much sun comes in, whether you're west facing or east facing. All of those have an effect on what kind of plants can be there. And I want to go back to Principle 1, because everything you said goes back to the right plant in the right place. And if that helps that buffer zone, it can then enhance everything else that's involved with that.
And the terminology that the Florida Friendly resources use is not even a buffer zone, it's a low maintenance zone. And lower maintenance in our heat and other conditions is a very appealing thought to me. The less that I have to do.
I was just thinking that also. Because, less that I have to do, less that anybody has to do.
And it kind of goes way back to one of our earliest episodes where I think it was Teresa brought out a point that the more you do, the more you have to do. That the more that you're interfering with the natural flow of the plants and the environment, that the more you have to keep that up with external efforts versus kind of working with the way that nature wants to work. And then if you're not working against it, then you're not working nearly as much in the first place, because it will do what it wants to do.
I think one of the things that is important that the Florida Friendly Principle talks about in this particular one, and I think it was really eye-opening to me, and we get into some of the geeky numbers, but Florida has 10,000 miles of rivers and streams, 7,800 lakes, more than 1,000 freshwater springs, and is the second largest coastline.
Wow.
That's Florida. Now,
And I think the first largest coastline would be California.
yeah.
And you think about how much land that covers, we're right behind it.
And just in our county, we're surrounded. I always feel like we're like a mini Florida because we are. If you look at Pinellas County,
We're
you
a
look at Florida, peninsula on a peninsula. And in some of our areas, our waterfronts go very far inland. If you think about how far Lake Seminole, for example, and how far that goes up, and then it hits into the Cross Bayou, and then that connects into it. We're so connected to this, and this is such an important principle in my mind.
Yeah, and there's a term that was used in this material that it talks about the riparian zone, and that's a transitional area between land and a river, stream, lake, or other body of water. And that zone impacts the vegetation and the soil by the presence of the water. So that's where we're trying to focus our efforts on that zone, because once things get into the water, it's a lot harder to get them out and it's a lot harder to manage them. So making sure that the wrong things don't get into that water. And that kind of brings me to another point about invasive plants. And water carries a lot of things, and there's seeds that are transported by wind, transported by animals, but there are a lot of seeds, including invasive plants, that travel in the water, and then they get into those good conditions of that well-irrigated soil right around that riparian zone, and they're easily taking root. And there's things like the water hyacinth and some other specific harmful plants that are really a problem in our areas. And even certain types of coconut. They say that certain types of coconut can float hundreds of miles from different islands, and then they wash up on the beach somewhere and they start growing in an environment that really is not well balanced for them. I won't say it's not well suited, but they can easily outcompete the things that are native here.
But like what you said about once it's there, like water hyacinth, for example, trying to get
so
that
hard
out.
to get it out.
So difficult and very intensive in trying to get it out and trying to have to maintain to keep it out. So,
and then there's things like the hydrilla and the water chestnut, and there's a lot of plants that become a problem in those waterfront properties. And I think this is a good point to kind of throw in what we were looking at about invasive plant removal and management.
So these are some things that people can do.
Yeah, organizations that you can get involved with that will help you learn to identify some of those harmful plants, and that they put together on different frequencies, different locations, that there's maybe a cleanup kind of day where I know there's one mid-December, there's another one coming up in March that is part of the Keep Pinellas Beautiful.
Is that Lake Seminole?
At Lake Seminole. And I know that there's actually some volunteers that just go out from time to time themselves because they've worked with this group to learn what to look for. And so just as they're out walking the paths around the lake, that when they identify something, because they've been part of this team, they have the authorization to go ahead and remove the wrong plants when they're found.
Very important.
Because this is public property.
I was going to say, it's very important not just to pull up things if you really have to know what you're doing.
Yeah, absolutely. Because honestly, people take things that they shouldn't be taking sometimes, even from our botanical gardens and other locations, that you don't want to be assumed that you're part of that crowd. You want to be a little bit official when you're doing this, but
yes.
Being helpful and even just pointing it out. I know some of the parks around my house, I see the invasive lantana from time to time, and so I'll reach out to the Parks Department and say, "Hey, you've got a alien over here. Come and get it."
You really want to make sure somebody knows. So speaking about helping out, I think one of the things from my perspective that I think is important is that, okay, I don't live near any waterfront, but I want to make sure that I do something. I have something to do. And there's a whole slew of organizations in our area that do this. And I just wouldn't want to point some of these out. And I think we'll put some of the notes in the show notes.
Yeah.
One of them I don't think a lot of people know about, and I got involved with them. I was at a festival, and they were there, and I'm like, wow, that's really interesting what you do. And it's called SOUL. It's the Stewards of Urban Lakes, and this is a group that I'm really proud of and what they do. And they are mainly focused on St. Petersburg and the lakes in St. Petersburg. You talked about the buffer zone. So one of the things they do is they literally take out the invasive species or the turf grass, and they plant a 10-foot buffer zone. So it's not just cleaning up the lake. They really do things, and they have a cleanup every day. So Mirror Lake, but I would really encourage our listeners to go down to Crescent Lake.
Okay.
And Crescent Lake off of 22nd Avenue, I don't know if people know where that is, but you should go down there. It's a beautiful lake. It used not to be.
Okay.
And so this group has been focused on that for many, many years. And probably around January or February, the white pelicans will show up there in droves, which hasn't happened for many, many, many years. So this just goes, I think, as an example of people helping out and cleaning things up and making a buffer zone and increasing the wildlife.
Oh, they're kind of restoring that habitat.
And restoring that wasn't there. So that's one group that I think is great.
I'll say another group that's kind of in that same vein is the Water Stewards. And one of our extension agents, Lara Milligan, she does have another podcast, but, keep listening to us too, that had to shout out Lara. But she does a training, I think at least once a year. I don't know the exact frequency of it, where it is the water stewards. And there's also kind of a version of that that's called the Adopt a Drain. And you take this training, you learn, again, what to look for, what to do about it. And you just pick your spot and you volunteer your time to make a difference in that spot. And somebody that is in a condo or an apartment could participate in that in another area of their community, in their city, in various parts of the county. There's so many opportunities that you can get involved, even if you physically don't have land that you're responsible for.
And you feel so good about it. Tampa Bay Conservancy is another group. It was founded in 2001. They've secured 60 acres near the Alafaya River. Tampa Bay Waterkeeper is another group that does volunteer work in the area. Tampa Bay Water, even though that, Tampa Bay Water, you don't think of them as, you think, okay, that's our drinking water. No, they actually are important for supplying our water, but they're also important for keeping it maintained. You mentioned Keep Pinellas Beautiful. That one, there's always something going on with them. If you just want to do a coastal cleanup, if that's all you do, that still is helping.
Tampa Bay Watch is another one that their slogan is dedicated to the protection and restoration of the Tampa Bay estuary. So another example of a place that just an average citizen can get involved.
Yes. And the last one I found was really interesting, called Florida Lake Watch. And this one is really interesting because this is one of the nation's largest and most successful citizen science programs dedicated to water quality monitoring. Since 1986, they've empowered everyday Floridians to take an active role in monitoring and managing the state's precious water resources, lakes and streams and estuaries. What's interesting is that this particular group is coordinated from IFAS.
Right, yeah.
From University of Florida. And I watched a video when I was looking at this group, and again, we'll post how to find this group. But what I found interesting is that they train to collect water and how to collect it. And they are able to get so much more data on our waters and estuaries and lakes. And so there's a lot that people can do.
Yeah, and even NOAA, the NOAA.gov,
Really?
they have things about living shorelines and the Resilient Florida program. There's no shortage of information. It's just looking for what fits your interest, because just like you and I decided that the Master Gardeners program really fit the interest that we had in a way that we got excited about, that there's people that would get a lot more excited about going down and helping restore an oyster reef. And yay, go for it. But
I'm not sure I would.
Probably not going to join you.
Sorry,
Maybe once or twice.
Yeah, I was going to say, I was going to say this.
But, we have our geek zone and other people have their geek zone. So pick your spot.
There's so much that you can do, and it really, really helps protect our waterfront in the long run, and you feel really good about it. And then you're also educated on it.
Right.
And then your education comes back to talking to somebody else.
Yeah, and sharing and increasing your own impact by that transfer of knowledge, as well as getting people to come alongside with you and get involved in things that you're involved with or things that you're like, yeah, you can have that one. I'm going to do this.
So again, this principle really encompasses so many of the other principles that we've talked about over the last episodes. And I hope our listeners will go back and dive deep into mulch, if that's their interest, and dive deep into any of these principles. But I think that if you just do these simple things, and again, you can go crazy or you can just do a few things, it's going to help and protect our waterfront. It's going to protect our environment, especially in our community.
And the more people that do little things as part of new routines in their life, the more that those little things are going to add up to big impacts. So let's wrap this into our Ready, Set, Grow, which is our little monthly spot about some gardening tasks and just general maintenance tasks in your property, getting things ready. I will absolutely say this every time. Turn off your automatic irrigation. We are actually, for the month of December, already in a drought in Pinellas County in 2025. And so it's moderate now, but our rainy season is over. We didn't get pounded by the hurricanes like we did in 2024, but that meant we didn't get that rainfall that normally would have come with those storms. So we're going into the drier part of our winter season already behind on our water levels. So be mindful of how you're using your water and making sure that you're not being wasteful and just
be mindful of the restrictions if they come up.
Right.
SWFWMD is the one that issues these restrictions.
Yeah.
I don't think
currently the restriction is basically just
the same as what it's been.
Don't be wasteful about it. You've got your set days and hours, and I think the hours are the thing that bug me the most. I drive down my street and 3 o'clock in the afternoon, somebody's got sprinklers running, and that is the most wasteful time of day to use them. So know your times, know your days, and be responsible about that. But then looking out for signs of disease or stress, things like the plumeria rust, the lethal viral necrosis, the large patch fungal disease, all of this really continues through until May when we get more into our summer routine.
And if you do have turf grass, it really doesn't grow at this time of year.
Yeah, let it be dormant. That's fine.
It goes into dormancy.
Yeah, let it rest and it'll come back stronger and healthier for you next year. And even if you just have houseplants, this is a good time of year to be mindful of the plant-specific needs like the temperature, the light, the humidity, that some plants you might need to supplement the humidity when we have the drier air over the winter, or you might need to give them some artificial light while we have less daylight hours.
Soil testing.
That goes into the set.
Remember you asked me one time, what is the most important thing?
Right.
I have the answer. Soil testing. So this is a good time because, again, a lot of stuff goes into dormancy. And if you're thinking about ready to start planting for our season, it's a good idea to think about soil testing and remembering right plant in the right place, because some plants have certain pH that's...
And the more that you do, the more you have to do that. If you set yourself up to have to modify the ground that you're planting into, then you're going to have to keep supplementing that if it's not sustainable on its own. And that also comes into compost and mulch, that this is a great time of year to put those down, that it helps to replenish your soil and recharge it for not only the cool season planting, but also in preparation for the next season.
Whatever fallen leaves we do have.
Right. All those palm fronds.
I mean, if you have a red maple, those kinds of plants, the fallen leaves is good for your mulching at this point.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then, of course, continue monitoring for landscape and garden pests. In Florida, we don't have pests that go away necessarily. So it's real important to keep an eye on those. And again, that goes back to our integrated pest management. So it's a You're maintaining and monitoring, and then you can then deal with that.
But then we get to grow some more stuff, and I'm so happy about that because finally I've gotten some of my cool season stuff going, and I've got some broccoli and some carrots and lettuces and things that just don't really hold up against our extreme heat, that they do really great right now. And even different types of beans and corn, cucumbers, you can still plant those now. And peas do better in the cooler weather than they do in our hot summer here, like the English peas and the snap peas, different kinds of squash, or even cantaloupe and watermelon, that there's so many things that you can keep planting. Pumpkins, sweet potatoes, spinach, Brussels sprouts, cabbage. There's so many things right now. And tomatoes and tomatillos. We think of them as a summer thing, but they do really great in our off season as well. We don't have an off season. We just have
We really don't.
a little bit cooler and then a lot hotter.
About annuals, perennials, anything that can still be planted at this time? Or?
Yeah, for sure. You mentioned one that surprised me, which was geraniums.
Yes.
And that
Yeah.
there are geraniums that you can plant in our area. And then other things that, again, don't grow as well in the hotter times, the calibrachoas, the carnations, dusty miller, some of these things that they will tend to succumb to the more extreme heat, that you can plant them at this time of year. And alyssum is one that is blooming a lot right now. And this is a little bit off the list, but I have a plant that's called Yesterday, Today, and Tomorrow. It's a Florida native shrub, and it changes color on each bloom over the cycle of the bloom, that it starts out with a really vibrant violet purple, and then it gradually fades into sort of a pale lavender, and then all the way to a creamy white. And it's a couple of days along in each transition of colors, but that has been just blooming nonstop for the last month. And so those kind of things, it's a good time to plant shrubs and trees still, because it gives them a chance to get established, and just so many things. And even herbs, different herbs like parsley, fennel, cilantro, thyme, so many things that we can keep planting. This is definitely not a dormant season. This is a growing season.
Plus, it's a little more pleasurable
Yeah,
being out
a lot
in your
more pleasant.
and pleasant in being out in your garden and doing work. And we hope that everybody continues to do that and do the little bit that you can do to make our community the best it can be when it comes to our plants and our environment and our waterways.
Yeah, and we want to thank you all for following along with us. We've been since March until December. And just a little personal side note, the Master Gardeners Volunteer Program in Pinellas County, you go through a training that lasts generally from sometime in August to around the beginning of December, depending on how things go. And then you take a test and you've passed your class, but then to actually become a certified master gardener, you have to input a certain number of volunteer hours, which it's 75 hours in the year of your first year. And then I think it's 40 hours a year after that. Then 10 hours of continuing education on top of that for any year. The two of us were in the class in 2024. And so our official graduation, now that we've fulfilled our volunteer requirement, is this December. So we're upgrading from our rookie status to fully official certified master gardener.
I'm very happy to
volunteers.
get rid of master gardener volunteer trainee. The trainee is going to be taken off. And we will get our official badges. And yes, I'm very excited about that.
I'm just so thankful for all of the support that we've received in our community just regarding the Master Gardener program in general, and just how much people have come forward in these last few months saying what a valuable resource it is to them. And we love all of that feedback that we get through the Extension Office and directly through IFAS. All of these things are just so meaningful to all of us.
And we hope that this podcast has been beneficial to you all in terms of learning and understanding the importance of the Florida-friendly principles, as we've focused on those in these first episodes that we've done. And really hope that you can comment, like.
Yeah. Next year, we're going to be a lot more creative about what topics we're covering. So please leave some comments on this episode and, send us some feedback through the IFAS Extension Office, just to say, I would love to hear about whatever topic is interesting to you. And we can take that and we can put together an episode about it, and we'll let you know when it's going to come up next year. But we're so thankful that you've come along on this journey with us, and we wish you a wonderful and prosperous new year, and we'll see you in January.
Thanks for tuning into Planting Pinellas. We hope you're feeling inspired to get involved, learn more, and grow alongside this incredible community.
Be sure to subscribe so you never miss an episode. And if you like the show, leave us 5 stars or a review. And don't forget to share with fellow plant lovers. Until next time, keep planting, keep growing, and keep making Pinellas County a place to thrive.
This podcast is brought to you by the University of Florida's Institute of Food and Agricultural Sciences Extension in Pinellas County, Florida, an equal opportunity institution.